Have you ever wondered why the people who seem the strongest are often the ones silently breaking? The ones who always smile, who always say, "I'm fine," even when their eyes tell a different story? They're the people everyone depends on. Calm, composed, capable. They never fall apart in public, never show weakness, never ask for help. And yet, when the lights go out and they're finally alone, the silence around them starts to feel like a scream. Because here's a truth no one really talks about. The price of always being okay is exhaustion. Not the kind you fix with sleep, but the kind that comes from carrying the weight of 1,000 expectations. It starts so small you barely notice it. A child gets praised for being responsible, for not crying when it hurts, for being the good one who doesn't make trouble. And little by little, they learn something dangerous, that love is conditional, that affection must be earned by being perfect, that being real, being messy, being human is too risky. So they adapt. They learn to swallow their pain. They build a version of themselves that pleases everyone, polite, reliable, flawless. But inside, they start disappearing. You see, perfection isn't about doing everything right. It's about fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of rejection, fear of losing control. And that fear becomes a silent religion, one that demands constant worship through overachievement, through people-pleasing, through pretending. But here's the paradox. The more perfect you try to be, the less real your life becomes. You start existing as a projection, a carefully edited highlight reel of yourself. And everyone loves the projection, but nobody knows the person behind it. That's the real tragedy of perfection, being adored by the world, but unseen by yourself. Think about it. When was the last time you allowed yourself to break? To say, "I'm not okay." To stop performing strength and simply exist in your weakness? Most of us don't, because we've been taught that vulnerability is a threat. That if we let the world see our cracks, we'll be judged, rejected, forgotten. But the cracks are where the truth lives. They're where the light gets in. Psychologists call this the perfectionism paradox. The belief that if you can control everything, you can finally feel safe. But perfection doesn't create safety. It creates distance. Distance from others and distance from yourself. Because how can anyone love you if they never see the real you? And how can you love yourself if you're always pretending to be someone else? Here's what they don't tell you. The pursuit of perfection is a slow kind of self-abandonment. It looks noble on the outside. Hard work, discipline, excellence. But deep down, it's often driven by shame. Shame that whispers, "You're not enough unless you earn it." And that shame becomes the quiet engine behind your achievements. You become addicted to approval, to success, to being seen as flawless. But no matter how much you achieve, the emptiness doesn't leave. Because external validation is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Let's be honest. We live in a culture that worships perfection. Our social media feeds are highlight reels. Our conversations are filters. We show the world our trophies, never our bruises. And so everyone ends up comparing their behind-the-scenes chaos to someone else's perfectly curated performance. It's a silent epidemic. Millions of people smiling on the outside and crumbling on the inside. We scroll through endless proof that everyone else seems happy, and we think, why can't I be like them? But what if they're thinking the same thing about you? The truth is, we're all pretending to be fine, hoping someone will notice that we're not. And here's where it gets dark. When you live for perfection long enough, you forget how to live for yourself. You start measuring your worth in productivity, your happiness in performance, your identity in applause. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize you don't even recognize the person staring back. The smile looks familiar, but the eyes are hollow. Because you've spent so long perfecting your mask, you've forgotten the shape of your own face. But I want to tell you something that might sound strange. The real you, the messy, uncertain, emotional, imperfect you, that's the one people need to meet. Because perfection might impress people, but imperfection connects them. You see, vulnerability isn't weakness. It's an invitation. It says, this is who I am. Not the polished version, not the performance, but the human behind it. And when you show that, you give others permission to do the same. That's how real connection begins. Not through perfection, but through honesty. But honesty requires courage. Because to be honest, you have to be willing to lose the approval you've built your identity around. You have to risk being misunderstood. You have to let go of the idea that love must be earned through flawlessness. And that's terrifying. But it's also the only way back to yourself. Because when you finally stop performing perfection, you make space for peace. Peace doesn't come from having everything together. It comes from being okay with falling apart, from saying, I don't have it all figured out, and that's okay. From allowing yourself to be seen, even when it's uncomfortable. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones. People who are brave enough to cry, to laugh too loud, to fail publicly, to love clumsily. Because perfection isolates, but humanity connects. And maybe that's the lesson most of us spend our whole lives trying to learn. You don't need to be flawless to be loved. You just need to be true. So the next time you find yourself saying, I'm fine, when you're not, pause. Take a breath and remind yourself, you are allowed to be more than just okay. You are allowed to be seen even in your chaos. You are allowed to be human.
If you've spent your life performing, it's easy to forget one simple truth. You are not your mask. The person you show the world isn't the only version of you. It's just the one that survived. And survival isn't living. Survival is a quiet erosion of your joy, your energy, your voice. It's smiling while your soul whispers, I'm tired. It's saying yes when every part of you wants to scream no. It's giving endlessly while your own heart runs dry. But here's the hope. You can step out of survival. You can reclaim yourself. And it starts with one radical act: permission. Permission to pause. Permission to breathe. Permission to say no without guilt. Permission to feel the emotions you've been hiding: anger, sadness, fear, without shame. Because kindness, real kindness, begins with the self. It's not about being generous at the cost of your soul. It's about giving from fullness, not from emptiness. It's about saying, I care, but I also matter. Boundaries are the bridge from exhaustion to authenticity. They are the invisible lines that protect your energy, your heart, your mind. And boundaries aren't cruelty, they're honesty. A boundary is saying, this is what I can give, and this is what I cannot. My love is real, but it cannot exist if I'm empty. I care enough to show you my limits. Imagine your life as a garden. For too long, you've been watering every plant except your own roots. Giving, 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 until your roots are dry, brittle, breaking. The soil beneath you has no nutrients left, and the flowers you tend, the people you love, start to wither because the gardener is collapsing. But here's the miracle. When you water your own roots, everything changes. Your energy returns, your heart softens, your presence becomes richer, deeper, more magnetic. And the garden you care for flourishes, not because you sacrificed yourself, but because you are whole enough to nourish others without vanishing. And this isn't just theory, it's biology. Neuroscience tells us that our brains are wired for empathy through something called mirror neurons. When we constantly expose ourselves to others' suffering without pause, our bodies respond as if we're suffering too. Chronic stress, immune system problems, exhaustion. These aren't failures of character. They're the natural result of giving endlessly without refueling. So the first step toward liberation is simple and terrifying. Start caring for yourself the way you care for others. Practice the pause. Before saying yes, breathe, check in, ask yourself, do I have the energy? Do I want to do this? Is this aligned with who I am, not just who I think I should be? Learn the gentle power of no. A no doesn't have to be harsh. It can be kind, compassionate, honest. I care about you, but I can't take this on right now. Or, I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity today. Reframe your worth. Your value is not determined by what you give. It's intrinsic. You existed before anyone needed you. You are worthy even when you rest, even when you protect your energy, even when you say no. Tend to your own garden. Fill yourself with what nourishes you. Friendships that feed your soul, creative pursuits that ignite your mind, moments of stillness that restore your spirit. When you live from abundance rather than scarcity, kindness flows naturally. It doesn't deplete you, it overflows. Allow yourself to feel the hard emotions, anger, frustration, sadness. They are not enemies of kindness. They are guides. They tell you when your boundaries are crossed, when your needs are ignored. If you suppress them, they become a monster inside. If you acknowledge them, they become teachers, showing you where to draw the lines that protect your heart. Because here's the final truth. Authentic kindness is never selfish. It's not about erasing yourself to make others comfortable. It's about showing up fully, honestly, vulnerably. It's about giving without bleeding, loving without losing yourself, helping without vanishing. And when you do this, when you reclaim your voice, your energy, your humanity, something extraordinary happens. Your kindness becomes sharper, stronger, radiant. It inspires instead of exhausting. It lifts others without costing you your soul. The world doesn't need more people performing perfection. It needs people who are real. People who are messy and strong, tender and fierce, imperfect and whole. People who can say yes and no with equal honesty, who can love without self-abandonment, who can shine without burning themselves out. So the next time you feel the weight of always being fine, remember, you don't have to carry it all alone. You don't have to vanish to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to matter. Authenticity is your superpower. Self-compassion is your armor. Boundaries are your shield. And when you combine them, your kindness doesn't fade. It flourishes. Because the real miracle isn't being strong. It's being human and allowing the world and yourself to see you as you truly are.
Now imagine this. You wake up tomorrow not to fulfill expectations, but to honor yourself. Not to perform perfection, but to show up fully, messy, human, alive. It feels strange at first, uncomfortable, maybe even scary.
Because for years, you've been rewarded for being the strong one, the nice one, the always okay one. And now, you're stepping off the pedestal. You're letting yourself exist in your own truth, even if it shakes the world around you. And here's the thing. The world doesn't crumble when you do. In fact, it shifts. Your presence becomes magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Think of kindness as a river that flows best when it has room to breathe. When it's dammed, forced, or overworked, it stagnates. But when it flows from a source that is full, alive, and nourished, it becomes unstoppable. It gives without running dry. It reaches places it could never touch if it were trapped. That's the kind of kindness the world needs. Not the quiet martyr who disappears beneath the weight of expectations, not the person whose generosity costs their soul, but the one who loves without losing themselves. The one who says yes when it feels right and no when it doesn't. The one who cries, laughs, rages, rests, and still chooses to care. You see, your limits aren't weaknesses. Your emotions aren't obstacles. Your humanity isn't a flaw. They are your compass. They show you where to stand, where to step back, where to flow. And the more you honor them, the more your kindness becomes authentic, powerful, unshakable. Because real kindness isn't about exhaustion. It's not about performing virtue or hiding pain. It's about love that doesn't vanish. Love that radiates from a full heart. Love that lifts others while keeping you alive. And here's the paradox. When you stop giving yourself last, everything you give becomes more meaningful. Every smile, every act of care, every word of support, it's sharper, stronger, more alive, because it isn't bleeding from emptiness. It's overflowing from abundance. So today, start small. Set a boundary. Rest when you're tired. Say no without guilt. Feel that sadness, anger, or fear without shame. Speak your truth softly but firmly, and watch as the mask you've been carrying for years slowly slips away. Because underneath it all, you were never broken. You were never too much. You were just human. And being human is enough. When you embrace yourself fully, you teach the world to embrace you too. And your kindness, it becomes revolutionary. It doesn't just keep others alive, it keeps you alive. The monster within kind people isn't their limits, their anger, or their exhaustion. It's self-abandonment. Face it. Set down the mask. Water your roots. And you'll discover something extraordinary. Your kindness doesn't disappear. It grows, stronger, brighter, freer. It becomes the kind of kindness that inspires, protects, and transforms for you and everyone you touch. And maybe, just maybe, that is the greatest gift of all. To live fully, love authentically, and show the world that compassion doesn't mean self-erasure. It means truth.